How's it going, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And today is the day that I get to do an advance overview of the Marvel Masterworks, the Remasterworks at that, The Amazing Spider-Man Volume 1. The one that kicked it all off. It is newly restored, and we're going to be comparing it to a couple of other editions, including the previous printing of this Marvel Masterworks. So, let's see what this is all about. And welcome back, everybody. So, here we have the Remasterworks Volume 1. And this is the latest printing of the Marvel Masterworks that kicked it all off in November of 1987, which is so crazy to think about how long these collected editions have been around. And please, in the comments down below, I always ask this, but I'm always curious. If you've been collecting these books from day one, let me know in the comments down below. So what we're looking at here is the direct market cover. This is the same direct market cover they've been using for the last few printings. And yes, this goes back all the way to 1987. Collecting The Amazing Spider-Man 1 through 10 and Amazing Fantasy number 15 by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. It's a Jack Kirby cover here. And let's look at the spine here. Marvel Masterworks, Volume 1, The Amazing Spider-Man, the Marvel logo down there. And then let's take a closer look at the back, because on the back is where they added something new. And here are all the covers of the comics collected inside. And then, of course, experience the seminal stories of the world's favorite superheroes. Marvel Comics is proud to present the Masterworks Library in the special limited printing collector's edition featuring the classic format. This printing is limited to 841 copies. Now, that's, of course, talking about the direct market cover here. And this is what they've added right there. And that is the printing date. So 2023 is when this was printed. Meaning that if you're at a shop and you see these and you want to get the most latest printing of this book, you can just look at the back. Because previously there wasn't a date. Even though it's in Roman numerals. 20. I'm sure there's an app on your phone that you can just put your camera on it and it will immediately translate it to numbers. All right. Now, I mentioned that this is the direct market cover. There's also the standard edition cover. The direct market cover is the one that's limited to 841 copies. And on the back of the standard edition cover, they also have that printing date. So in case you're out there and you want to grab the latest printing of this Marvel Masterworks. Now, what I'm going to be doing on this video mostly is comparing the internal artwork to the previous printing, the one from 2015. By the way, before I go any further, a huge thank you to C2 Keyboard Samurai Connor, one of my wonderful patrons, that mailed me a copy of his sealed Amazing Spider-Man Marvel Masterworks from 2015. He didn't even open it, and he was like, no, go ahead. Please. So thank you so much for that. I will be mailing this back. That was so kind of you. But I wanted to compare the internal artwork to see what's been touched up on. And I have turned through every page and reread a couple of issues just because I really enjoy this particular era. I'm also going to be comparing it to the Omnibus edition. This is the latest printing of the Omnibus and the Penguin book that they released themselves, and seeing what kind of scans are used in each of these. I don't have the Epic collection anymore, and I'm pretty sure the Epic used the latest masters from the Omnibus, and therefore the last scans from the Marvel Masterworks, as well as the Mighty Marvel Masterworks. So we're going to open this up, but before I do, let's look underneath and to check out the flaps right here. Marvel Masterworks, it was August 1961, Excelsior, it doesn't get classier than that, and then other Marvel Masterworks. Now, we know they're reprinting a lot of these, like Fantastic Four and X-Men Volume 1. And I don't have the list of the recent Remasterworks or the ones that will come out next year, but we know we're going to get a couple of Volume 2s so far. And they're doing them in the order that they were originally released. And this is what the flaps of printing look like, so you can get an idea. All right, so let's look at these underneath the dust jacket. You have that foil stamped logo right there. And same as the new printing. It's that black faux leather. And again, the emboss foil look right here. Marvel, The Amazing Spider-Man, Volume 1. What is missing is this little copyright, though. It's missing from the new printing. So that's interesting. And of course, nothing on the back. Now, I am going to be cracking this open and talking just a little bit about the stories collected in here, and then doing mostly a comparison with the previous printing of the masterwork and, of course, the two other books I mentioned. All right, let's go ahead and get this book opened. By the way, the Remasterworks program kicks off May 30th. That's when this Volume 1 will be out everywhere, direct market and book market. We have these end pages, and we'll compare it here in a little bit. The Amazing Spider-Man Volume 1, collecting Amazing Spider-Man numbers 1 through 10, and Amazing Spider-Man number 15, Stan Lee, Steve Ditko. Here we go. And Amazing Spider-Man printed at the Donley printer where the previous printing was printed. The table of contents. Now, one thing you're going to note for people that have been reading these for a while and own the previous printing of this book, my buddy, big shout out to Mark Zimmer, who came to my house and we did a little bit of a page by page comparison. He's a big Masterworks guy. But we noticed that the page count is bigger on this version. As a matter of fact, this has about 60 more pages than the previous printing. This has 312 pages, whereas the printing from 2015 has 244 pages. And we'll talk about what those are. But you can probably tell from here what they're going to end up being. So we have the classic introduction by Stan Lee, which is very funny, actually. And it's kind of the way that he writes his dialogue for Spider-Man. So here we go. The book that started it all. And yes, one can say the beginning of the Marvel or the Silver Age or the Marvel Age. I know people, Flash of Two Worlds. I get it. That to a lot of people, including myself, is the beginning of the Silver Age. But what really put a lot of comics in kids' hands was the beginning of that Marvel age with Fantastic Four. And of course, that led into this. So, Amazing Spider-Man number 15. Here we meet a shy teenager, skinny, lanky little kid named Peter Parker. Or Peter Palmer, depending on what issue you're on, who gets bitten by a radioactive spider and through a series of unfortunate events when his uncle gets shot and killed, learns that with great power comes great responsibility. And thus kicking off this era of the every man can be a superhero. It really changed the way that comic book stories were told, right? We're used to these Hercules looking, Apollo looking, super beefy, perfect looking superheroes, and here comes this lanky kid with glasses that's kind of nerdy and into science and dons a superhero costume. So through these pages you're going to get the misunderstandings with the Fantastic Four, the first appearance of the Chameleon, the Vulture, Sandman, Dr. Octopus, and the Lizard appears through here. There's the fight with Doctor Doom. And it's a very practical way that he ends up defeating these characters, especially the vacuum effect. Electro shows up through here, and a couple of other characters show up through here. And what I wanted to say is that that's very rare for these characters. Like, I just named his rogue gallery that is still around to this day. Most of the time when you go back to Silver Age stories, these characters, these villains, especially villain of the month type of characters, never really show back up. It's not really until you get to here, like I said, the Marvel Age, that you start seeing, oh wow, all of his rogue gallery from this particular volume, they are still playing a big role in Spider-Man's life. So this collects the first 10 issues, and then we're going to be looking at the extras, the back matter, here in a second. And I just wanted to point out that each of the covers has been put inside of this frame right here. It's a black frame. And this is what the covers look like. And this, of course, being the appearance of the Enforcers, who play a big part, and still to this day still play a big part in Peter Parker's life. You get to meet his supporting cast, of Aunt May, Uncle Ben for like a little bit of one issue, and then Betty Brant, Flash Thompson, and yes, his rogue gallery. Before we take a look at the internal artwork and compare it from the previous printing to the new printing, and then of course the Omni and that Penguin book, I wanted to look at the back matter to show you exactly how many more pages and what exactly is collected in this version, in this new printing. So we have a Blake Bell outro right here, which is collected in the 2015 version. It's from 2008. This, however, for the first time collects the world's best-selling swinger introduction to the origins of Marvel Comics from 1974. This is written by Stan Lee. It was not collected here. And it is quite a wordy introduction. 5 pages. And then you get the Blake Bell introduction here. And this artwork, this isn't bleed through, by the way. It's just that kind of faded out artwork that they put in every Marvel Masterwork introduction or outro. And it's a little more prominent here. You can tell, you know, the artwork is more defined here. And that's mainly due to the inks that they're using. I appreciate, as I'm getting older, that the words are bigger. The font is bigger here in the introduction for Blake Bell. And they take advantage of the pages. So this little piece of artwork right here is now put over here. Let me tell you, Corey's team did an amazing job of restoring some of these issues, which I'll get to here in a little bit. And for the first time, you get the unused cover by Steve Ditko, this time in color. Before, you've had it in black and white. Because remember, the Amazing Fantasy number 15 cover was done by Jack Kirby. That's why he looks a little bit, here, let's actually look at it. Looks a little more muscular than that Steve Ditko look to his Spider-Man. Alright, and here to the right is that same page. This time around, it has a little bit more of a brownish tint to it. This has more of a bluish finish to it. You can barely tell the difference. And here's some more. Okay, let's go back here to this scan. The one thing I did notice from here, and again, it's because I'm showing my age, is that the font is a little bit smaller than this previous printing. It's easier to read here. Not that this isn't, because it's white on black. And, you know, I just have to hold the book out like this, or I have to get my readers on to actually read this. And you could probably tell, yes, the book is sewn binding, just like the previous printing, but it's more prominent here. And let's go to these pages. Again, original artwork right here by Steve Ditko. And looks a little more yellowish right here than red. They're using more of a red overtone here. And this right here, you can probably tell, is a little darker than the pencils used here. I want to say this looks like it was almost touched up on. And this looks like the actual pencils by Steve Ditko. Well, of course, it's inked, but here you go. A little more of that. So far, you know, we do have very similar extras, but that's about to change. Here is the unused cover art. However, it's in black and white, and I think that is the one thing that is missing from this collection right here, the black and white version of Amazing Fantasy number 15. And yeah, you can probably tell that, hey, wait a minute, that's different. So now you get more house ads. I think these were collected before, but just in smaller format. There's the Enforcers and the Marvel Bullpen right there. More for the first time. Uncolored original artwork right here that was not previously collected. Here is the Merry Marvel Bullpen, including some of these wonderful folks that put so many of these stories together. Yes, see, if you can tell here, these were done in thumbnail size, whereas in this version, the house ads are done in full splash pages. So let's go over here. More of these. Oh, no, actually, that's a Marvel Tales annual right there. And these are reprints of those classic stories. And that's it for extras over here. So we got a lot more. We got Marvel Tales stories right here. These are reprints of the classic stories. And we have Spider-Man Classics. This is the 90s reprints. Stuff like this has previously shown up in the omnibus format. But even the omnibus format does not contain the Spider-Man Classic covers. They go straight to the Masterworks covers. Because keep in mind, this right here collects all of Steve Ditko's era, not just the first 10 issues. So even the omnibus edition does not contain these covers from the 90s, these Spider-Man classic covers. So we'll come back to the omnibus, but let's keep comparing this to the masterwork, and then we'll compare the artwork, the internal artwork. So again, you have all these classic covers right here. And just a few more. Oh man, I didn't even see this one the first time I flipped through it. This is the Ace edition, pretty much reprinting Spider-Man #1 with that beautiful cover. They did the same thing with X-Men comics. And this is another Ace edition, Spider-Man #3. And here we go. The Marvel Masterworks trade paperback cover is now printed here. And this is the Marvel press poster, the cover they usually use, or actually they still use to this day, for the Marvel omnibus of Amazing Spider-Man #1. This is the 1962 omnibus cover, the standard edition cover. And then the biographies, which I'm not sure when they started the bios. I want to say there was some when I stopped collecting Marvel Masterworks, but that's also in here. So again, about 60 so pages of extras. Now, we're going to be comparing some internal pages. I'm not going to flip through every page, I promise. As much fun as some of you, a handful of people would have with that, I'm just going to point out some pages and some differences here. So, Amazing Fantasy, for the most part, has been remastered and restored more than probably any other Spider-Man comic. So, what we're going to be seeing here is just slight differences, like the colors on the cover right here. And it's not as vibrant as those colors right there. As a matter of fact, this is the scan that they're using for the omnibus, this Amazing Fantasy scan, the latest scan that they used here. I think it was because, was it the facsimile edition that they went back and retouched the colors, and that's probably why. So let's keep going here. So you're going to see some differences here, but it's mainly the colors. Now, what I wanted to do was actually compare more of issue #1, because it feels like issue #1 and the one with Doctor Doom, what was that, issue #5, I think, are the ones that are where you're going to see the most difference. And it's mainly due to the colors that they're using and the fine lines. They seem like they are more detailed here in the new edition. And let me see if I can find, yes, right here. So this is a prime example, and as minuscule as this is how much attention to detail you're going to be getting. Let me make sure you can see what I'm talking about here. So in the case, I can't believe I'm saying these words, but in the case of Aunt May's hat, this is the printing from 2015. This is the new printing. I believe here they thought that was her hair, so that's why the hat is colored white right here. Whereas in this new printing, they went back to the true artwork, like using the latest scans of the original art, and were able to touch up on that. So you can see the finer lines here in the new scan than the more, I don't want to say muddled because these are beautiful still, but they're darker and you can't really see those defined lines as you can here. This is the scan that they've also used for the Omnibus edition, this one here. So it's a scan from the 2015 edition. And it's also the scan that they're using for this hardcover from Penguin House right here. So it's that 2015 scan that they're using. And you can tell, and this is just, like I said, one example. You'll find a little bit more like that the more you look in here. And I've always compared this to, actually, let's put these back to where they were. This is the new printing, and this is the 2015 printing. And the flesh tones are a little more toned down, if you will. They look more like flesh colors as opposed to the more peach or pinkish type of skin tones that they've used in the past. And you can actually, there's a difference here, like the color correction now for the spaceship and the previous printing right here, the 2015 printing. And it's just little things like that that you'll notice. I always compare it like you're going from DVD to Blu-ray format. You have to have a keen eye for these things. A lot of people won't notice, But people that are collectors will notice that the colors they're using here are true to what came out in single issue format. I guess this would actually be going from like Blu-ray to 4K, because the Masterworks always had that treatment of restoration. That's what I get excited about when I announce a new Masterworks. Like, oh, well, that means one day the Omnibus will have those new masters. Let's look at a couple of other pages. You know, what's really interesting is like the reds are a little more vibrant in the new edition compared to the previous printing, but they've really toned down the flesh colors. See what I mean? This has more of a like a pinkish peach finish to it. This actually looks more a little bit like flesh. These guys have been sitting out in the sun too long. And again, it's very minute details like that. Let's look at issue number 5. This is where I noticed it too. And not just the colors, but the details on the line are more detailed here. And let me just show you this particular page right here. For example, when we're looking at Doctor Doom's arm, like I said, the colors are just a little bit different than they are here, but the lines are more defined over here in the new printing than they are in the 2015 printing. Nothing wrong with this, you know, it looks beautiful, but to a keen eye, somebody that's actually looking for these things, the lines are more detailed, they're more finer here than in the previous printing. Let's just look at a couple more pages. And again, the flesh tone's looking a little bit different here. And now comparing it to the Omnibus Volume 1. And even though the panel is bigger, the lines are more defined in the Marvel Masterworks. Particularly when you're looking at fine lines like this compared to over here. You can see like the black right there becomes a little muddled. Whereas opposed here, you can still tell that they're different strokes. And again, little things like that are what you're going to find. And looking at another issue right here, the flesh tone on Vulture right there, different than the flesh tone that they're using for the new printing. And the building itself looks a little bit darker here, truer to what the original comic was. One thing I didn't note, but I wanted to touch upon, is the paper stock. While we're looking here, you can tell right here the earrings are a little bit darker, and so are Betty's lips compared to this printing right here. But the paper stock, it seems about as thick as the previous printing from 2015. And you get the bleed through that you would in the original printing, you know, which is very minimal. But it was still there in 2015, and it's still here. Maybe a little bit more in this version. Let me see if I can find. So we're going to go back here to issue number 1 to look at some of these lighter colors like this right here. Usually it's on whites or light colors like this, like yellow, that you can see some of the art bleed through. And this is being just, you know, looking for things like this. If you're not looking for things like this, I don't think they'll be noticeable. Because as I mentioned, the paper stock seems about as thick as this 2015 printing. But you can see a little bit of the panels come through over here, and a little bit more, honestly, in the new printing than in the previous printing. And that could be the colors. I don't think it's the paper stock because it feels the same. And just comparing these two pages again to show the detail right there, how much more detailed it is over here with the lines, and to show what the whites look like with some of the panels from the other side coming through just a little bit. Stuff like that. And also to point out, holy moly, these 9-panel grids that Ditko would use. You know, it's funny that nowadays whenever we see like Tom King write 9-panel grids, to Steve Ditko, that was just an everyday kind of thing. He was drawing in 9-panel grids all the time. And I think it's really interesting that nowadays, because of Watchmen and of course a lot of the Tom King's writing, it's like, ooh, it's special. We're getting extra artwork in one page. He was definitely an artist, that's for sure. Let's look at this binding really quick. You have sewn binding with 312 pages. And the one up above is the 2015 printing with 244 pages. Just to kind of give you an idea of the way the books lay over. I mean, Masterworks don't really need a big eye because of the page counts that they have. They collect about 10 10 to 12 issues, although sometimes like Uncanny X-Men has a lot more. But that's it. That's the beginning of the Remasterworks right here. So, yeah, let me know in the comments if you're picking it up in this format. But that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this Masterwork, please don't forget to check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltscomicshop.com, and you can use the code nearmintcon at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget, the CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and of course, build and comparison to the other editions of this Marvel Masterworks, or this Remasterworks, as everybody's calling it. Well, maybe some of us are calling it. But anyway, this is the new edition and the new back-to-print era of the Marvel Masterworks. Let me know in the comments down below if this is the way that you collect these classic issues, or if you get the omnibus, or you have the previous edition of this, or you're an epic collector, or Mighty Marvel Masterworks, or hell, you may even own the original copies. But why are you getting those out to read when there's so many of these? There's also the big editions from Taschen. There's the Penguin Random House, hardcovers, trade paperbacks of the Marvel Masters. So many editions of these particular classic stories. But for a lot of people that started this journey with the Marvel Masterworks, this new printing means a lot to them. So I'm curious as to how people are going to start their journey, if they're going to go this route or omnibus route or however it is. Let me know in the comments down below. Please don't forget to smash the like button on the way out. Ring that bell for notifications to let you know when our videos are going live. Everyone stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.